Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are having a wonderful week so far. Hopefully, all you guys are doing amazing. Today is January 21st, and I believe it is Wednesday. Hopefully, all you guys have had a wonderful week so far. It's the halfway point. And hopefully it's not too stressful. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would greatly appreciated as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by this summer. Also, drop a like, drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on the news from the day. All support truly helps. And if you're on Substack, please consider subscribing as well. It's $8 a month. All funds go to me, helps me pay for the things that I need to pay for in my life, like my groceries, like my clothes, like all of that. But with that being said, hopefully all you guys are doing amazing, and let's get into today's episode. Moving on into our headlines and history, the topic we have for today is this is about when Ronald Reagan took his oath as the 40th president of the United States. Of course, minutes later, 52 hostages in Iran were captured, I believe. This is from January 21st of 1981. Just as Ronald Reagan was concluding his inaugural address on the Western Front of the Capitol after being sworn in as the president, 52 Americans who had been held hostage in Iran were heading home towards freedom. The Times reported the hostages, who had been held for 444 days, dominated President Jimmy Carter's last 14 months in office and his campaign for re-election. Reagan won the election by a landslide. Of course, that's about the individuals who were being held, before the Reagan administration, which did actually, I do believe, led to one of the main reasons why Ronald Reagan won his election was because of these captured individuals and Jimmy Carter's overall failure to deal with that, which is a big deal. It really is. Of course, people don't want Americans to be held against their will, and unfortunately, you really wish that could be like the biggest scandal of a presidency, but under this administration, that is just not the case. But hey, it's definitely another interesting one. And with that being said, let's get into the rest of today's episode as we move into the news from today. Moving in to our daily highlight today, I just wanted to cover 1 year under Trump. Yesterday was 1 year under Trump, the big 365. So I wanted to take this time to reflect on what we've seen so far. For starters, tariffs. We've seen a lot of those. They've done a lot of damage. They've led to an overall tax increase on American households by around $1.5 thousand. They've lowered our GDP by 5%. They've caused a removal of 500,000 jobs. Speaking of jobs, more Americans are unemployed than there are jobs available under this administration. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 7.5 million people are unemployed, and there were only 7.1 million job openings in the United States this year. What else, though? ICE has been a big deal this year. They are a terrorist organization propped up by Democrats and Republicans alike, and they have killed 32 people since Trump came into office. They've also detained hundreds of citizens, along with so many other horror stories, like when they murdered Renee Nicole Good, and so much more. It's a big issue. We're also being thrusted into multiple wars under the Trump administration. We're in a variety of conflicts in the Middle East. We're at war with Venezuela, and we're threatening a boatload of other countries like Greenland and so many more. This isn't even just like the tip of the iceberg. This administration is horrendous, and they are putting the lives of every single American at risk on a daily basis. They need to be removed in its entirety before they cause even more destruction. The Trump administration is fascist through and through, and their Gestapo and them themselves need to not make it past 2026. In other news, moving on to the Trump administration segment, the first topic we have today is Caroline Leavitt is claiming that Trump didn't mix up Greenland and Iceland because Greenland is a piece of ice. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claims Trump didn't mix up Greenland and Iceland when speaking at the World Economic Forum, but he did, of course, many times. According to Leavitt, she said, no, he didn't, going on to say, his written remarks referred to Greenland as a piece of ice, because that's what it is. You're the only one mixing anything up here. Greenland is not a piece of ice. I don't know why I have to explain this, but, it's an island covered in a sheet of ice. It's not a piece of ice. It's covered in ice. Uh, uh, but of course, Trump isn't the smartest to know that. Outside of that, no, Trump 100% mixed up the names of the two countries. I mean, if you look at the clips of this, he blatantly calls Greenland Iceland. And he doesn't say anything about, what it's made of. He doesn't say anything about it being made of ice. No, he just blatantly calls Greenland Iceland. This is honestly a stretch from Livet, but hey, what do you expect from her? It's how she goes. In other news, Trump is claiming that a deal has been made for Greenland and the entire Arctic region. Trump has taken to Truth Social, announcing a deal has been made for Greenland and the entire Arctic region. In this post, he wrote, "Based on a very productive meeting that I had with Secretary General of NATO Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with with respects to Greenland, in fact, the entire Arctic region. The solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all of NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go in effect on February 1st. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others as needed will be responsible for negotiations, and they will report directly to me. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Does NATO and Greenland know about this deal? And also, what does it entail? Because he didn't really give us much to go off of here, really. He just said, yeah, we have a deal. I talked to these people. No one else has said anything about it. But hey, per usual, we're going to have to wait and see what happens and if something actually does happen or not. But I doubt the United States will be taking control of Greenland anytime soon. And if if it's going to happen, like, I would be shocked. I'm going to be honest. This is just the next thing in a long line of things. And sure, they went for Venezuela. But if it does happen, there will be consequences from Europe at the very least. And, if this deal is really just, what the deal we had originally, and it's just changed up and reworded, I'm going to lose my mind. I'll be completely honest. Okay, moving on into our eye segment today. Sorry, I'm not my nose is super itchy during this video, and it has been all day, and I don't know why, but it's not even that I'm congested or anything. My nose is just so itchy. I don't get it, but it is. I apologize. Moving on into our segment about ICE. ICE is looking to start operations in Maine. ICE has launched a new operation in Maine, the next democratically led state, and in a seemingly very long line of democratic states. Local officials have already warned and are preparing for possible heightened tensions between residents and federal officials because of what's been displayed in Minneapolis. Portland Mayor Mark Dion said the city rejects the need of ICE because they will believe it will cause fear and anxiety throughout the community. Good luck to those of you in Maine going out there to combat these terrorists. You guys got that. I believe in you. I really do hope one of these days ICE can just give up. But I doubt they will. And if they give up on ICE, I doubt it'll be something for far worse that they prop in its position. Little history drop for you guys, but for those of you who don't know, before Hitler had his SS, he had the SA, and the SA was a much more violent group, much more rambunctious, much more excessive, just as ICE is. And, Hitler decided to get rid of them because they essentially got too powerful. I just rubbed against my microphone. If that picked up on the camera, I apologize. Hitler decided to get rid of them because they got too powerful. And I very well could see the same thing happening with ICE. There's not a lot of regulation here. They are kind of just doing as they please, which is an issue. ICE very well could be the SA before the SS comes, and hopefully we get stopped before that, but you never know. Anyways, moving on into our other news segment today, a former Trump secretary has called on Congress to investigate him. Former Trump White House Secretary Stephanie Grisham has called for an investigation into Trump's mental state, saying it feels like he is mentally slipping. In a post on Twitter, she wrote, "The presser is bizarre even for him. It's all the unusual rambling, off-topic tales, half-truths, lies. I fixed everything. No one has ever seen anything like it. It's stuff. But it's low energy, and it feels like he's mentally slipping. Congress, please wake up. Please, the emperor has no clothes. This is true. I followed Trump for a long time now, and every day it seems like he's slipping more and more. The man is nowhere near as coherent as he was in 2020, even as he was, really in 2023, um, maybe even 2024. It's causing a lot of problems. It really is. And it's a testament to the fact that we can't have people this old in office. It causes risks, it causes issues, because we need age limits. If you look at anyone, near their age in office, like there's a shit ton of politicians who are very clearly not there. Mitt Romney, who has had multiple strokes and seizures and a bunch of other things while in office, like the man can barely even speak anymore. But it's not just that. Like Trump is very clearly, not mentally okay. He goes on these tirades regularly, and it's just something we saw with Biden as well. It's a long line of things, and it's a long line of politicians in office in this country, and it's something that needs to change. We can't just have these people who are older than a sack of bricks in an office. And I know my viewer base is a lot more older, but I mean, we for the longevity of our country, we really cannot have people who are 80 something years old running to hold political office. We need people who are younger. We need younger minds. We need younger ideas, because if we want to keep our country going, I mean, that's just kind of how you do it. You use these younger minds, you use these younger ideas. Anyways, moving on to our final topic for tonight, the European Union has halted a trade deal with the United States. The European Union has suspended the approval of a trade deal between them and the United States, agreed to in July. This was announced as Trump spoke at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Bernard Langs, and I'm probably pronouncing that horrifically, I apologize. The chair of the European Parliament's International Trade Committee said that it was left with no alternative but to suspend the work on the two Thornberry legislative proposals. Lange said that there would be no possibility of a compromise until Trump's threats on Greenland end. I mean, this trade deal sucked in the first place. It kept in a 15% tariff, which we didn't need in the slightest, but, here we are, Uh, if anyone was going to do anything about the United States, it's going to be Europe. I mean, let's be real. They've made that clear themselves, in all honesty. And hopefully either our government locks in or, they deal with us, because at this point it's very clearly necessary. This administration is a problem day after day. They threaten different countries day after day. They threaten different people a day after day, and it needs to end. It shouldn't be allowed. With that being said, though, thank you everyone for watching today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed. It's definitely been a very interesting day in the news world, that is for sure. If you're new here, though, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated, as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by this summer. And if you're on Substack, please consider subscribing as well. It's $8 a month. All funds go to me. Helps me pay for the things that I need to pay for in my life, like my groceries, like my clothing, like all of that. Outside of that, though, I think that's all I have for today. So thank you everyone for watching. I truly do appreciate it. And I will see you all in tomorrow's episode.